you all so much for coming to listen to Tapestry by the Campfire talks. And I know a lot of you were at the potluck last night. And along those lines, is anybody missing this cord?
Yes.
All right.
Great.
It was great. And thank you, Jean-Pierre, for the idea, and Jackie for being the inspiration for the idea. It's been a treat for all of us.
We found a lot of good DOT land rugs yesterday.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
All over the house.
all over the house.
No room for
Don't trip on those rugs. So we have another power-packed morning for you, and we're starting out with Mary Zicafoose. And I'll read her bio. Nebraska artist Mary Zicafoose has built her textile career around exploring and developing ECOP processes applied to tapestry. Her weaving resume includes representation in the collections of 24 United States embassies abroad. This last decade of Mary's work has focused on creating large-scale corporate and public tapestry installations, teaching, lecturing, and writing. She is the author of ECOT, the Essential Handbook to Weaving Resist Dyed Cloth, and is currently working on an ECOT sequel to be published in 2024.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
Can you hear me, everybody? Do you want me to stand or sit? Sit okay? Stand better? Yeah. Okay. I just want to make sure. Yeah. Thank you for that. Okay, I'll try to speak loudly. I live on the Great Plains, and I like all of us in this room, I am a creature of place. I'm deeply fed by the world that surrounds me. I first came to Nebraska in 1978 for a wedding, and I don't know who I fell in love with first, the Great Plains, the state of Nebraska, or Kirby, my husband. It all happened on one weekend that completely changed the trajectory of my life. Okay, what do I love about Nebraska? It is this massive sky, the horizon, and this band of earth. And it's a band of earth that feeds the world. There's something there. The moment I hit Nebraska, I knew it was my place, my power spot. And, and I was living in Chicago. I had no clue. And I was also quite young. I knew nothing about anything, but I knew that I had found my home base.
Time, I don't be pressing, it'll come.
Oh, did I already press?
I think so.
Yeah, okay. No, I think we're okay. I don't think I did press.
Okay.
All right. The month before COVID hit the United States, we started building a house on an acreage that we had owned for many decades in Nebraska. We have 150 acres on the Platte River. Many of you in this room, or several of you in this room, have visited. Pawhook is the name of the property, and it's an old Pawnee. The property contains an old Pawnee sacred site. The Pawnee Indian tribe in the United States has 5 sacred places that they have vision quested in over the centuries. And one of those sacred sites happened to be on our land. And when we bought it, we knew we were buying a property with a holy site. But the story has continued on. So we started building a house the month before COVID. We're still not done. We've had every delay in the world. And the building on the left, on the far right, is my studio, and the main house is obviously right there. Okay, this is Nebraska. This is my love affair, and it probably looks like any other place in the world, but for me, it is my home base. Okay, let's go. Yes, okay. These are just some pictures of my new studio. I designed the studio on a piece of graph paper, and I moved into it 2 years ago. And like all of you, or many of you, over a lifetime of weaving, I have woven in a basement. I've woven in a baby's room. I've woven in the living room. I've woven in the dining room, I've on the back porch. I mean, in the garage, I've had every shape and form of studio. And this is a dream to have a studio. I weave on cranbrook looms. I don't weave upright. I weave horizontally. I have 3 gigantic cranbrooks. And I guess while I'm talking about weaving, and this talk is going to move forward and backwards. I started weaving. I sort of stumbled into weaving, and I've never really, I stumbled into the back door of weaving, and particularly the back door of tapestry. Every strand of yarn in my studio, we dye. Everything comes in white, and that has been the story of my work for my entire lifetime. The week I learned to weave was the week I started dyeing. I always had the desire, but the demand to make my own color, to create the color myself in my work. Okay, let's go. There really is quite a lag. There's a variable lag. What? A variable lag. Okay, it's coming. So I'll prepare for the next slide. Over the years, I've had studio assistants for many, 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 many years, and I have them for many reasons. And I'm going to talk quite a bit about ikat today, the technique that I use in my work. But with ikat, it's a yarn wrapping technique. And I found years ago, decades ago, that I needed more hands to help me do this wrapping. That there weren't enough hours in my lifetime to complete all these projects and processes. And I also learned early on, and I believed that as a young weaver, as I wanted to make my work more painterly, I didn't believe I could acquire the skill sets this lifetime to become a fluent enough tapestry weaver to make my work painterly. And hence I veered into the world of dyeing to make my work more painterly. So this is a project we were working on. I always have many people in my studio helping me, and that's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing for me to have young people in my studio helping me, feeding me, just listening to different music, talking about different things, getting different points of view, and teaching them what I know, because I am in the bandwidth. We are in the bandwidth where we're doing this. Come on, come on, come on. Take my hand. Let me move you. It's time for you to be standing here. I need to edge over and let you stand here. So that I'm very cognizant of that. This technique called ikat, I was first exposed to it when I was 3. And my aunt and uncle had just come back from a trip to Indonesia. My uncle was in the CIA. They always went on exotic junkets. And when they came back, my aunt gave me this scrap of fabric. And it wasn't the fabric that caught me. It was when she grabbed me by the shoulders and literally shook me and said, "Mary, this cloth contains magic." And that was it. And it was like, it was the most powerful seed, and the most powerful seed. And I remember just being so taken and going, how do you get magic? How do you put magic into cloth? And that has been the driving force of my work, my entire life. And I believe, as we looked at the talks yesterday, I think that's been the driving force of yours. How do we put magic into our cloth? We're tapestry weavers. And that's what we do, I mean, what a beautiful life. We put magic into, and we all do it in such different ways, remarkably different ways, but we all do it. So they planted the seed. Did I know I was going to be a tapestry weaver or an ikat weaver? Probably more specifically, no. I carried that cloth with me everywhere. Lost it somewhere along the line. The next time The next time encountered ikat was in high school. I was working at a bookshop, and the owner of the bookshop was the president of the local Weavers Guild. And she and her fabulous girlfriends went off one summer to a Michigan Hand Weavers League conference. And when they came back, they were a flutter. They got out of their station wagons and they all had their beehive hairdos. And they poured into the bookshop and they dumped all their tote bags on a big table. And I looked down and it was all of that magical cloth. It was that, and I didn't know it was ikat, but they said, oh, the keynote speaker was Jack Larson, and his keynote talk was on ikat. And I said, oh, so that's what magical cloth is. It's ikat and blah, blah, blah. Okay, file that away. I'm now in college. I'm an art major. I'm a photographer. I'm a painter. I'm a designer. I want to be Mark Rothko. Whatever. I was just, yeah. And I'm at a portfolio review, and the head of the art department sweeps in, looks at all of my work. And she goes, Mary, I look at this, and she said, all I see are textiles. And I said, what? And wait a minute. I said, these don't look like, textiles. And I was so stunned, disheartened, frustrated, angry. I was like, no. I'm the next Mark Rothko. She goes, no. You're a textile artist. And it was so prophetic. And it wasn't because those paintings looked like ikats. It was because she had been watching me for 4 years. And she could see from the sense of my sensibility and the way I was wired that I was not a painter. That I was an engineer. I was an architect. I was a weaver who didn't know how to weave. And it was very true. I was a weaver who didn't know how to weave. And in fact, at the end of the portfolio review, she gave me a slip of paper and she said, look this word up. I looked at the paper, and there were 4 letters on it, IKAT. And as I looked at it, I went like this. I crumbled it up and threw it in the wastebasket on the way out the door. And so that's my background. So I'm from Michigan. I thought I was going to be Mark Rothko, and some very visionary people along the way planted seeds that I didn't even recognize. And I became a weaver. This is the technique. I graduated from St. Mary's College.
Did she let you graduate?
Oh, did she let me? She did. I graduated from college. Yeah. And it was okay. Yeah, it was good. And she didn't bug me. You've all had time to read this. This is what I do. And I turned to ikat, as I said, because I wanted to make my work more painterly. And it continues to be why I do it. And this is a world, a universe where I kicked open the door many, many years ago. And I just keep falling deeper and deeper and deeper into this pot of dye and into this particular form of textile making. Okay, let's go. Okay, what's characteristic of ikat? The bleed. Okay, let's go back. The bleed. It's the bleed. It's the bleed. That's ikat. If you don't like the bleed, you do something else. You do slit tapestry, which I do. I combine slit tapestry and ikat. I know exactly 3 tapestry techniques. 3. Jean-Pierre taught me how to make a straight line, a perfect straight line. And every time I teach that, I give you total credit. I said, there's one person who changed my life, and that was the day Jean-Pierre taught me to make a straight line that I could juxtapose with ikat. I've woven 2 pieces my entire lifetime that contain hachures. One was at a Jean-Pierre workshop. The other was at a Sarah Sweat workshop. I've never done them since. It's not my jam. But I go for the bleed. Okay, let's talk about that. Come on. Okay, I have traveled, like all of you. We have traveled the world in the name of cloth. And that has been our privilege and our gift. And I have worked with ikat weavers all over the world. And from the from the sublime to the ridiculous to, and this is how the world wraps ikat, on a couple sticks with some grasses. It's the way it's always been done. And has that ever stopped anyone from making the most extraordinary textiles in the world? No. Our equipment has not a lot to do with our vision. This is me in the middle of the Taklamaman Desert in China. We stopped at a bus stop and there was an ikat shop. And I don't know about you, but we don't have any ikat shops in Nebraska. This was like having a giant ikat shop in the middle of nowhere. And I was on a bus full of weavers. We had gone to a conference and we hit this shop and we did major damage. Everyone bought everything imaginable. Okay, we're coming. This next picture coming up is, and there's a very acclaimed ikat weaver that recently passed away from your area, and that is Virginia Davis, the great Virginia Davis, who resided in Berkeley, who died this winter. And she was one of the first weavers and female weavers to have works accepted in museum collections in ikat. And she was a brilliant woman, totally out of the box, of course, and did beautiful things combining traditional things with ikat. Like she did this whole series of tartans in ikat, double weave ikat. They were brilliant. Love Virginia Davis. Okay. I'm going to move on. In my weaving days, I started as a carpet weaver, and I sold my work at American craft shows around the United States. At that time, my husband was working for nonprofits. We never lived anywhere long enough for me to even get to know the people in the local art gallery to hang my work up. So I figured out, if I'm moving every year and a half, I will just I'll market my work through the craft show venues on the East Coast, which proved to be a good thing for me and my work. My early works, these are the only two early pieces I'm showing you. They're very ethnically derivative. Kirby and I lived in Central and South America several times. He worked in Central and South America for 20 years. Because I'm so deeply influenced by place, deeply influenced by the colors, by the symbols, by the cultures of those countries. And my early work reflected that. My early work also reflected my my limited repertoire with tapestry, but my eager repertoire with dyeing. So it's always a dyer. And soon, after a couple of years of weaving, what do I want to say? Stumbled into ikat, much as I stumbled into weaving. This is the first ikat piece that I did as a carpet. All of the yarns were over-dyed with Cushing mulberry dye, and I knew nothing about how to make an ikat fit into a piece, but I knew I wanted the work to become more painterly. And after that piece, things just started clicking along. The first piece has 6 little wraps of ikat in it. To date, the most complex pieces have hundreds of thousands of ikat wraps. And I can't possibly wrap fast enough or long enough to do hundreds of thousands. And hence I have my helpers with me. So over the years, I've always designed my works in series. So there's always a group. I do everything in groups of 13. I don't know why, but this was a series called, it was based on the tornado as a visual symbol. So there were 13 tornado tapestries. This is all ikat. This is weft ikat. It could have been done a different way. It could have been done with tapestry, but this is all dyed yarns. This is a series called, I don't remember the name of that series, actually. This was a series on endangered species, and it was done for a solo show in convergence with, what am I trying to say? At the same time that convergence happened in Portland, Oregon. And I did 13 pieces on endangered species, animal hides, or patterns. This is called prayer blanket for a vanishing species. And the night of the opening of the show was the night before Convergence opened. And the next day I went to the opening, the gallery opening. The next day I got in a moving truck and we moved from Portland, Oregon to Omaha, Nebraska. So I didn't go to Convergence. And as the moving truck was moving, I was driving down to Terwilliger Avenue. My husband says that I was hanging out the back like this with my fingers on the pavement screaming, no, I won't go, but I went. And I had no idea that moving to Nebraska for me was going to be like getting a winning lottery ticket. It has been the most powerful and wonderful place for me to live. So these are early ikat pieces. Over the years, lots of work in lots of embassies around the United States. How did that happen? I showed my work on the East Coast at the Baltimore Craft Show, Smithsonian Craft Show, the Philadelphia Museum of Art Craft Show, and the curators would come, and that that opened a very lovely door for me with the embassies. And many of you are in embassy collections. I just sent a piece off to an embassy in Africa in Lesotho a couple of weeks ago. It continues to be a wonderful thing. And what I love about that is I will get emails and letters and pictures from people who are visiting the embassies, and they're, here's a whole family in front of one of my pieces, and they're all, everybody's like, waving and saying, we love seeing your piece. Okay, I will speed things up here. Over the years, the ikat started to become more fluid and painterly, as well as my skill sets grew in wrapping yarn and designing for ikat. Okay, I'm trying, guys. Okay, this was some years ago. I think in 2008, I had a 6-month residency at the Bemis Center for Contemporary Art in Omaha. And it was the first time that I wasn't like weaving in a garage or a basement. I had this pretty phenomenal studio. And in that big space, it allowed me to think bigger and more complex. And I began a series on personal identity using the thumbprint, my thumbprint, and then other people's thumbprints. So this was the first of the thumbprint series done in ikat. And these are quite large pieces. This is, probably 12 feet by 8 feet. As over the years, my pieces went from 3 to 5 to 4 by 6 to 5 by, they just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and as did my looms over the years. This particular piece, I can tell you the air in it, that little bottom section right down here is supposed to be up here. It was supposed to be the tip top. And I had all these things, all this ikat wrapped on shuttles. And instead of picking up shuttle number 1, I picked up shuttle number 47 or something and wove that one first. I can tell you the air there. Okay, we're coming to the next thumbprint series. Several years into this, maybe 2 years into this, I got a phone call from a client in New York City, and the client said, hey, my partner and I would like to have a piece with both of our thumbprints in it. Would you please fly out, look at our lovely home, and would you design a piece? So I flew to New York. We decided to do this as a triptych, where the center section would contain both of their thumbprints. This was my first really, really massively complex ikat piece. And in the wrapping and the dyeing of it, 3 of us wrapped ikat for 3 months. 3 months in my basement in my Omaha house. 3 months of every day showing up, listening to books on tape and doing this, wrapping yarn, stretching yarn, wrapping yarn. 3 months, hundreds and hundreds. Well, I think it was actually 186,000 wraps on this particular piece. And then we dyed it, which was a huge thing. And when it was time to unwrap it, I got a brilliant idea, which actually was a brilliant idea. I contacted a Girl Scout troop that was working on their craft merit badge. And they came and we unwrapped ikat together for a week, 24 girls, and we unwrapped all of these mountains of yarn. In the dyeing of this piece, I always envisioned it as being completely white in the background. And that's not ikat. I got lots of bleeding. And which I think is what makes this piece very painterly. And the piece was designed and not only I did 3 versions of it. I wrapped 3 layers at one time. One version went to the client, another version went to the Tapestry Triennale, and is hanging in another private collection. So, and I think the Woodge Poland was expecting a big, bright, colorful tapestry. And when I sent them this, they were like, oh, not what we had in mind, but okay, we'll hang it up. So that was a breakthrough piece. And and once you break through, you've broken through. You just keep moving on from there. Okay, we're coming. I am sure of it. I'm really sure of it. Yeah. Okay, there we go. Okay, this is from another series called Grasslands. Obviously, the top part is slit tapestry. The bottom is our ikat grasses blowing in the breeze. 13 in this series as well. Okay, this is from a series called Mountain for the Buddha. I did 13 of these tapestries. They are each, the symbol I was working on was the symbol of the triangle, the Trinity, or the temple, or the mountain. I mean, it could be any or all of those. And I literally stuffed these pieces with ikat patterning. And I don't know, and it's a bit dark here, but the background of this piece is just luscious. All of the fluctuations in the dye. And these are diptychs. They're 2 panels woven together, hung together side by side. And this is probably my favorite of that particular series. And this is called Mountain for the Buddha. Luna is the piece.
Is that one is the rest of the one?
It probably was hung in a show there. Yeah, it's been around a lot. Yeah, but
Would you repeat the question?
was that in Sebastopol? Was that in a show in Sebastopol? And I would say yes. Okay, how do I design? Where do I come up with my ideas? We're tapestry weavers. So I was just saying this morning, I wouldn't know what to do with a weaving draft if I saw one. It's not the way my loom is not controlling what I do. This is how I begin all my pieces. I'm a cut and paster. I paint swatches of color. I cut them out. I glue them on a piece, and I make compositions at my desk. And I spend weeks doing this, composing a piece, getting it together. Once I have it composed, then I go to graph paper and figure out, okay, how many square feet of yellow am I going to use? How many inches of this? What do I need to dye? I go to the yarn shells. I start pulling things out. What's going to be ikat? What's going to be slit tapestry? What's going to be one of those 3 tapestry techniques I know how to do? And we know there's going to be no hachures in the piece, without question. Okay. Years ago, I left my basement studio and I moved my studio to an architecture firm in Omaha, Nebraska. The firm was on one side of the building and they had a big collab space on the other. And I was in the far end of the collab. And I had my looms. I didn't do dyeing there, but we had looms set up, tables. And I was in a room with stockbrokers, hospital administrators, people who needed a space they could rent to get out of their homes. This was before COVID. And so this cartoon for an ikat is being stretched out into somebody else's space in the collab unit. And these are my 3 studio assistants who are working for me at the time. And I didn't realize at the time that not being in an art center around artists was a really good idea for me and my work. Because suddenly all of these people from other career paths and walks of life were interfacing with an artist at work every day. And they got to know me, they got to know the work. Tons of architects were streaming through the building. And suddenly this community that I lived in was like, we want your work. We know, Mary, oh, we watched her weave those pieces. Oh yeah. We want her work. We want her work. It brought me in my community like this. I was no longer the artist, secluded away somewhere where people were afraid to visit me or didn't understand the work. Now I'm going to talk about process. This is ECOT in action, weft ECOT in action. I have a cartoon, I stretch some yarn, and we wrap like it's our job. And we do this for row after row after row of weaving. This is not everybody's jam. I know that, but it's mine, and why my husband says that everyone who works for me, we all have the same damaged chip. And we do. We've all got the same damaged chip. That we can do this, that we can do something like this and like it. Oh, I've got 5 minutes. Whoa, okay, we're going. If the computer will let me go, we're going. Okay, these just lots of forms of wrapping. Tons of wrapping, you can see. Lots of dyeing, things in bags, things going into dye kettles, right and left. Tons of yarn management. That's what one of the descriptions from when I hire studio assistants is yarn management, because that's what we do. We manage yarn and we turn yarn into stuff. This is all going to be a piece. And if I've done the math right, and if I've organized everything, when I weave it, it will become a piece. This is my longtime studio assistant, Anna Nance, 14 years with me. She just had a baby and has stepped down from that position. I often weave multiple tapestries at one time that are all going to be part of the same. This is a triptych. This was the thumbprint triptych being woven. I'm going. I fear I've overloaded it now. Okay, come on, baby. You can do it. Gosh. So we have woven standing up for many years. I can't even remember when I sat down behind a loom. I've got too much weight to lift with, on my harnesses. My looms, one is 12 foot, the other two are 10 feet wide. And so I weave standing up. And I think I wore out my knees years ago, but they've been fixed. So that's good. I also, much as Sarah and many of you have used text in my work, I was given a commission several years ago to do some pieces for a cancer center, a series of 5 tapestries, and I call them the Hope and Healing tapestries. And my idea was to do the words hope and healing in 15 different languages, which I did in the tapestries, and I rendered them all in ECOT, and each with a different font. And the thought was that when you sat in the lobby of this cancer center, people came from all over the world, that they would look and find their language, and it would say hope and healing. And we were at the grand opening of gala event of the cancer center one night at a big dinner, and my husband and I were at a table with a group of Chinese doctors and researchers, and they said, well, what's your practice? And I said, well, I was the tapestry weaver who did the tapestries, and they all kind of looked. And then one of the doctors jumped up and he pointed to the hope and healing in Chinese, and tears came out of his eyes, and he went, hope, healing. Kirby looked at me, and we did a high five, because so easily, and with ECOT, the way it mutates and bleeds, it could have said pumpkin and parakeet, but it said hope and healing. I was like, yes, he got it. And these have been great. So these are just more process shots. I'm going to, here we are installing, going up, going up, going up. Hope, that's either hope or healing in, I don't even know what language. These were the pieces, which they don't look quite so large. They're 14 feet long. These were my helpers at the time. You know, we got them up and we're all just like, whoa, amen. This was the night that Joe Biden came to speak, and he gave a talk on cancer. He had just lost Bo, his son. And I like this picture because it was the Biden talk night. I didn't get a picture with Joe in front of the tapestries, but I think this shows the scale of the work for you to see. And I love working this scale. And the beautiful thing is that I continue to be asked to work in this scale. I get a lot of building commissions. And yeah. And like all of you, you know, all our works go hither and yon. They go into homes, they go into buildings. Okay, this is a big sweep of ikat tapestries. I actually like this quite a bit. This is another series with text that went to a women's rehab center, and it was the word for woman in 30 languages. And I like doing these languages because, for one, when it's in a foreign language, they become symbolic. It's not just, it doesn't become like it's a poster. They become very, very symbolic. So I'm going to go where I've got only a few more, Mary, I swear. I've got 1 minute. Okay. These are some massive pieces that were done for Susie Buffett's corporate nonprofit in Omaha, Nebraska, that went into her lobby. There they are hanging. This was a piece that I did at the beginning of COVID. When COVID hit, I have 2 studio assistants that I knew that I had to keep employed. I didn't get any PPP money to keep them. So I'm like, okay, we're going to do a dream job that I've been thinking about. And I wanted to document the cranes roosting on the Platte River during the spring crane migration in Nebraska. It's a world-class birding event. And I found this picture of the birds on the river, and we started wrapping ikat. And I kept them wrapping ikat for the first year of COVID. And here, this is in process. This is one board of wrapping. Here, this is the piece. Before it's been dyed, it's been wrapped. Here's the piece next. You're going to see it dyed. Come on. Come. You can do it. Yes, here it is, dyed in indigo. This is a lot of indigo dyeing. And here we are. Here's the piece in motion. What I'm currently working on now is a series of tapestries called field guides. And they are literally maps of the property that I live on, and what groupings of species. And each grouping of species is represented by a different color and a different size. And I'm like crazy about this idea. And so we're cranking out these field guides, and they're fun to do, and they're meaningful to me, and they are so about place. And I just have received a request to I also do works on paper. I print. I go to Santa Fe about every year, a year and a half, and I create large scale prints on paper that complement the weavings and allow me to get more visual images off my chest. And my husband again calls it cheap therapy for me to go to Santa Fe. But this is the last 2 slides. I'm currently working on a new commission for a big mental health hospital in Omaha. These pieces are 17. These 2 panels are 17 feet. The people said, we want to have words. We want words. We want color. And they sent me a list of 57 words, and in phrases like, you've got this, and onward and upward. And I said, no, we're not going to go there. I said, I'll give you 1 word. I decided to do 7 tapestries for them. And I said, we can put 1 word in each tapestry. So this big tapestry has the word courage tucked into a little corner. The other one has wellness. And these are 5 that are layered on top of each other. And they are trust, together, community, thrive, and support. And these are going to be installed in April of this year. And I just hired 2 new studio assistants to help me and to dye and to put a list together.
Are these the maquettes?
Those are the maquettes. Those are the maquettes. This is what I give to the client to say, okay, here it is. It's just young, little and adorable. Now imagine this at being 17 feet. Yeah. And they go, oh, okay. So my work it's pretty spare, but I live in a spare part of the world, and that spareness in the part of the world that I live in, I love, and I love to bring that quality to my work. I don't use natural dyes in these commercial pieces. I use wash fast acid dyes. We dye like demons in my studio. There's not a day that goes by that we're not dyeing or wrapping ikat for that matter. I continue to be fed very deeply by place, by the people around me in my work, and by the receptivity to my work. And I do feel this in my community, that my work is well received and that it does a job. The pieces feel purposeful. Do they all contain magic? Some do, some don't. Not every piece is a virtuoso. We all know that. Not every piece we make is a virtuoso. Do we strive for that? Yes, we do. And every night my prayer is long, vital, healthy life, please. So thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Tricia's requested a 2-minute break for the benefit of all of you. So
Thank you for giving
I'm
me more
setting a
time.
timer.
How much more did I go over? We started late, right? Tell me we did.
No, 10 minutes over your half 30. I gave her extra 5, so 5 minutes.
Over there. Thank you for hearing me. It would have fit if we didn't have the legs, right?
No, they'd be gone.
Oh.
But the legs are complicated things for sure.
All right, I'll just shut up.
No, it's fine. It was great.
Where's that piece? We gave it to. We gave the piece to.
Right here.
Right here. Okay.
Okay, yeah, we didn't know who had requested it.
I shall be requested.
I politely asked for Jackie for a photo, and she said, I didn't get around to it, so. Because she loved this when we were students together.
Great.
I'm not quite sure how we'll show it, so I'm sitting there.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I just.
Yeah, so. I like those.
Thank you. That was so intense. I think everyone is happy to have a moment. You're the only person that could go all day, I think. Yesterday, I think after 2 talks, I think when there's 4, most people need like 5 minutes, but I know you try to keep us on time. I saw that. That was killing me just now, but anyway, okay. So thank you for your being so organized.
All right, so you have 15 minutes,
Yes, and I'm glad that that is all I have. And so give me my slide, give me that. I know what slide I'm supposed to be on 2/3 of the way. I'm supposed to be here. that point. So I know where I'm supposed to be, but I don't know. I mean, I practice it, but you still don't know what you might say because I'm not reading mine. Okay, let me get situated here. Usually I go through with the equipment ahead of, I do all this ahead of time. You need my head.
Scene, right?
Okay.
Carrie was standing up.
Okay,
so
yeah,
change
I'm
it.
gonna sit, but I'm gonna take off my sweater and leave on my shawl, just. I I have a lot to do to be ready, so I'm okay though. Thank you for that announcement.
Sure.
I'm almost ready.
All right,
We'll
let
just
me know.
fix my, you saw me get dressed this morning. My bra strap. And, get my sweater out of the way, get my shawl on, for me. No, I usually practice with the equipment in the room before I talk, so that's my comfort level. Oh, but this light is great.
Yeah.
Is that not bothering you? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, and the forward and backward is,
This is forward,
yeah,
that's backward.
okay.
Yeah.
I usually go back and forth, but I probably won't because I see that how, it's a little, my process is I show it and then I show it again, but I won't do it. Plus,
Yeah.
I don't have that
Yeah,
much
there's a
time.
little
Okay,
time lag
okay, you
that's
can tell them,
variable.
that- you can yell at them now, I'm ready.
Are you too live?
Or 2 minutes, thanks.
Yeah. And if you watch it or just go to the end, there's a 20% off coupon. And you can buy it and then use it. Whatever. And just so you know, it won't last super long, right? I'm sure it's up. So if you want 20% off, that's
Wish me well.
I wish you well,
Thank
honey.
you, thank you.
Definitely.
I need after that, no, I knew who I was following today. She's just like
We all
so
love you.
amazing.
It's
That-
not a
That is so sweet.
Yeah,
That-
not a
that-
problem.
That's works.
We're just,
That-
you're
that-
talking to friends.
That works for me.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you, Elaine. Okay, good. Thank you, thank you.
All right, sit down. We have all afternoon when we're done. All right, our next speaker is Trisha Goldberg. Trisha has exhibited her tapestries and taught tapestry weaving for over 35 years. Her work appears in collections and in publication, including Fiber Arts Design Books 3, 4, and 7, and the Tapestry Handbook by Carol Russell. She studied weaving with Jean-Pierre Larochette and design with Yael Laree. Trisha is a founding member of Tapestry Weavers West, formed in 1985.
Thank you. Okay. As everyone else has said, what a pleasure to be here with everyone, to hear such amazing talks. And thank you, Jean-Pierre and Yael and Jackie. It couldn't be more fun this weekend, so thank you. Wow, I thought I was loud. Okay, I'll try my best. I thought I was loud already, but I'll do my best. Just remind me if I get quiet. I was already in love with weaving when I saw the Judy Chicago dinner party. And as you walk in, this was at the Modern Art Museum in San Francisco, where I lived. And when you walk in to the exhibit, there were tapestry panels. And I didn't know about this kind of contemporary tapestry until I saw the show. And I was instantly in love. And so I don't know who I could have talked to, but I said, where were these made? They were made in San Francisco. Well, where in San Francisco? At a little tapestry studio in Noe Valley, which happened to be about a 10-minute walk from where I was living at the time. So being in the right place at the right time was definitely this experience for me. So here's a picture. We saw a picture, I think, of the finished weaving yesterday, but this is Jean-Pierre on the right. At the bottom, Ernestine is the furthest right, and she was my first teacher. This was the poppies piece that was woven for the Legion of Honor. before I knew you existed. So that was before my time. But then I visited the studio and I walked in and I felt like I was home. So I took a first class with Ernestine, one of the founders of the workshop. And then I returned and took another class with Jean-Pierre. And I'm a little hazy on what happened when in the early 80s. So for those people who have better memories of what happened, you know, more power to you. But so I wove this piece, and my memory is that next to me was Jackie weaving this incredible piece. I don't know if it's in the light, if you can see it.
It's upside down. It is upside down.
She wove these boats with a reflection, and I haven't seen this piece for a really long time, but I always associate it with my early experiences in the 80s. And so to see it, is that okay, Jackie, to pass it? And so to see it now, what?
Remember, it's a beginning piece.
Beginning piece. I was next to Jackie in awe from the early 80s. So that was a great thing to get to have, to be with you. So I learned in the beginning to color code my yarns and bobbins that I was using, and to weave color strips. And after I wove my own piece, I was invited to weave a section of a piece from Jean-Pierre and Yael. And I chose this piece, which has been in my studios all these years. And I learned so much from getting to do this. I didn't choose any colors, any design. I just got to try to learn how to weave hachures. So it was fabulous. So many years later, I returned to that same parasol. I had wanted to do a self-portrait. So that's one of my self-portraits. And in the left corner, I didn't realize it till I was getting my pictures together, but that is hand-woven curtains that I had made before I was weaving tapestries in this way. I don't know where they are, but they look a little better in the picture, I think, than they looked in real life. So after the workshop closed, Pierre Stanley and Ruth Jones and I shared the space. And this was the first piece that I did there. And this was the turning point piece for me, where I thought, okay, I can learn to interpret paintings, photographs, designs, and I love this way of working. I want to go deeper in this way of working. So I painted this full size. I didn't know anything about painting. I painted and painted and painted. So after that, I had a studio in a church in Noe Valley. Phoebe and Rudy were weaving there, and Constance Hunt was there. And I had my little room, and we had our community there. We checked on each other. So this was inspired from a market in Mexico. And the woman with the gold shawl was the inspiration for this piece. And I was so excited and so nervous, and we didn't have our cell phones. And I told Dan, who had the camera, you've got to take a lot of pictures, because I need these pictures, because I won't know how to work on this piece if I don't have the pictures. So that is her. So I also have really loved weaving textiles in my tapestries. So the woman has an embroidered blouse, her woven shawl and woven skirt, and then there's a basket also. So in the early 80s, Tapestry Weavers West was formed, and that was the next community that I was really thrilled to be part of. And Jackie was involved from early on, and we had a couple fabulous retreats up here. And all these memories have come together this weekend, which is just wonderful. I was hoping to get a commission for a large tapestry of a sunflower. And while I was hoping to get it, I had time in my life to paint sunflowers, and I spent months painting sunflowers. That was probably the most fun I've ever had because I was between everything else in my life. And so while I was waiting for the commission, I wove this piece, and I painted it, and the red cloth was from an ikat sarong that I had to purchase in Bali because you had to buy a sarong to go into the temple. So that's my cloth in that piece. So this was the large piece that I did end up doing. And I learned a lot during that weaving. And I don't have any details, but Jean-Pierre told me you can weave the same shape over and over, and it's always going to be a little different. So I learned that in this piece because I didn't know. So I've met so many people through the years. I love sunflowers. Well, I had never actually looked at a sunflower. I didn't know it was comprised of hundreds of flowers in the center until I started doing this painting. So I learned. So there was a certain point in my life where I had a friend who taught in Japan, and we had a lot of Japanese visitors in San Francisco, and they would send thank you letters. And so I had this whole envelope of Japanese stamps, and I was going through one day and thinking, what am I going to weave next? So I took 2 of these stamps, and I also like to play with scale a lot. So I took these little stamps and I made them big. I thought it said, does it not? Oh yeah, it's about 4 by 5-ish feet. I don't know. That's why they're on the slides, because I don't know what size they are. They're there. So I was exhibiting this piece, and some Japanese friends came to see it. First of all, I did wonder very briefly, what could it say, and was it okay to just weave it? And then I just wove it and forgot all about that concern. And then these Japanese friends saw it in a gallery and said, it's a basho poem, which I had no idea of. And so they went to the Japanese American Library in San Francisco, and they found the poem. And that story is my favorite part of this piece now. So apparently the Mogami River was a slow moving river, but that year there was a lot of storms, so it was fast moving. And that's why he wrote that poem in the 17th century. But I didn't know that when I chose to weave that piece. So I was really happy doing large work. I thought that was fabulous to do that. And then there was a show in Australia calling for 8 by 8-inch pieces. And I thought, piece of cake, I can do that. Well, luckily I learned long ago, because this was still in the 80s, that size was not what made a piece interesting or easy or anything else. So I took a 1-minute figure drawing and I did the weaving of it. And I didn't know that they were going to be making this fabulous catalog, World Weavers Wall, at an exhibit in Australia. But there's a catalog that I have always shared with my students of small work, and all the other catalogs of small work. So I really enjoyed the design of that piece. I mean, I wanted to do more with it. So I did the same design 4 by 4 feet. And I don't know if you can, it's a figure leaning over. You might not be able to tell. It's sort of abstracted. So again, I was playing with scale with this piece. I had little poppies, which I know you're not supposed to pick, but I had to take them inside to paint them because I was too shy to sit around outside because I didn't have any in my garden. So I didn't really want to be in a public place. So I painted the poppies, and the green was the view out of that studio that I had, the plants. And then the bottom is from a Turkish carpet. Yosemite is a place that I get to visit sometimes, and it's always an inspiring place to go to. And I did this piece. This piece was also done for a show in Australia, Land. And those pieces, they had to be 10 centimeters high. And I actually didn't really know what that meant. I thought, okay, that's fine. And then I realized it's only 4 inches. So again, it's like, okay, I can do that. I can get snow and reflection and lake and everything else in 4 inches. And so that was that piece. And then many years later, I did this piece, Vernal Falls, also from Yosemite. And my dream was to get to exhibit it at the art gallery in Yosemite, which I got to do. And most of the work were photographs and paintings. So it was really exciting to get to have the tapestry in that show. So there's certain themes that you realize over time that you can't help but return to. And quince flowers are something that I love every winter. They're one of my favorite flowers. And this was done for one of the ATA unjuried shows, which I love to participate in, because you can do whatever you want and they feel very freeing and they're small. So I did this for one of those shows. And then recently, TWW had a show called Shift. And I wanted to do something different. I didn't know what I wanted to do for it. But I had my design and I actually cut it into strips and wove it back. I wanted the design to be off kilter. That was my idea of shift that I wanted to do for this. And I realized when I was weaving it that I wove pretty much each little square, and I was weaving postage stamps when I wove it. And that's the design. That's the cartoon actually that I used. So this is my most personal piece that I did as a tribute to my girlfriend Angela, and Mary was kind enough to show that piece as well. So the front, so this is from a postcard, and the front of the postcard is an embroidered girl, and on the back is the writing. And so I sat the front of the postcard just right over the writing. I didn't rearrange where it went. I wove it, I designed it where the front was on top of the back. And I thought that all this writing was going to be the work of this piece, and I thought I was going to weave it smaller, but I had a 10-inch warp on a loom, and I held up paper to see how it would be weavable until I got it the right size. And the letters are about 3 inches high. So they were not the hard part, but the fabric of the girl's clothing turned out to be really, really complicated. It's never what you think. So this is a piece that my sister and mother commissioned of my sister's garden. She's on the right, I'm on the left. And this is oak tree. Of the last few are fairly recent commissions. So I have poppies in the foreground, and my goal was to capture the plants blowing in the wind. That was my goal for that piece. I think I pressed it. Oh yeah, okay. So you can see in the work in progress on my upright loom that I use. It slowed down. It was going fine, it slowed. Okay. And my favorite tradition is cutting off parties, which I learned at the workshop. And all my students have a cutting off party, from their beginning sampler to every other project that we do, because I was taught to honor our time and effort that we put into our work. And that is what the cutting off celebration signifies. This piece I did for a wine bar that's in Oakland. You can visit it. The owners of the wine bar loved this cup, and so that was what I took to do the tapestry from. And recently I did a couple pieces for a restaurant in San Francisco. And in conjunction with that, I was invited along with a group of plein air artists to do a painting, and they were to be donated for a fundraiser for art education, which I was thrilled to get to be part of. And I did my painting, but I did a weaving from it as well. And so both of the pieces went for education, so that made me very excited. I don't think I've sold a painting besides that painting. So this was the first of two projects that I did. This is a painting by Ilus. She's an amazing still life painter. It's a little hard to see, but the owner of this restaurant had a vision to have the painting on one side of the private dining room and the tapestry on the other side. So go figure, but I actually loved weaving this piece. And then I got invited to design my own piece for the same restaurant. Oh, wait a minute. Did I go too far? Oh, no, I'm sorry. Yes. Okay, so this is the piece that I got to do after that piece. And since it's a California themed restaurant, I chose blooming artichokes. So I got to have flowers and vegetables. And I think I loved doing it. I was happy to be done. I think that's the expression there. And that's the piece on the loom. And I get to teach twice a week in my Berkeley studio. I have an indoor space and an outdoor space. So that's where I get to be twice a week. Done. Done. Thank you. I think I'm done. Yeah, done. Thank you.
Thank you, Tricia. So inspiring. Before our last presentation, we want to capture all of the speakers gathered around Jackie with a photo. So could the speakers all come up? Sorry.
Yeah, we lights are pretty good, thank you. You know where those were the one where I know we didn't go to and do we have a ball? Yeah, I think. How many balls did we get together? Paparazzi. Get on the other side of y'all. Yeah, and Sally.
Height wise.
Yeah.
I can shoot over you, don't worry about it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's getting there. Fitting, it's fitting there. Down and smidge, because you can see behind you. I forgot how's that. You want to share this? Anybody mind if I take a picture of the picture taker? Funny. Smile, everybody. Say cheese. Say tapestry.
No, I'm that way. Say Jackie.
Awesome. Oh, I should have had. Oh.
Okay, one more time. One more time, please. Ready? That's everybody.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
I should have done panel.
I was thinking I should have done close-ups of little, yeah.
I did do that.
Oh, okay,
A
good.
little bit, but yeah.
Like, there's like sometimes the front in your hand, something, so that you can move there. There's things that allow you to breathe. And so I feel like in that space, I can talk about anything. I'm free to talk about that. Yes. Yeah. I said, So where are you guys going to get for this?
Oh, I gotta give her one of my cards. Jean-Pierre is gonna be here,
Yeah, I'm sure.
and Jackie and Yael are gonna be over there.
This would be good. Then this will take a picture of Jean-Pierre and then we can use this one to take down.
Well, that, you know, well, yeah, that is a presentation.
How the coding sense of props and that's-
Not even a minute. Oh, yeah, why not? There are people. That would make everybody see.
The last segment today is going to be a conversation between Jean-Pierre, Yael, and Jackie. And I'm going to read their bios. I'm honored to read their bios. Collaborating in life and work, designer Yael Larry and tapestry weaver Jean-Pierre Larochette's main activity is attempting to express With the perennial tools of line, word, and thread, their passion for tapestry. And now more than ever, their wonder at it all. For over half a century, they have made their home in the vast expanse of Northern California and central Mexico, from the redwood plain to the palm trees, where they find joy and inspiration. And Jackie? Jackie Wollenberg's first experiences with weaving were through a small shop in Berkeley, and then at the Lejre Historical Archaeological Research Center in Denmark, where she was living with her family. Upon her return, she studied with Kay Sakamachi and then Ed Rosbach, who taught at UC Berkeley. Jackie attended graduate school. After studying tapestry weaving at the San Francisco Tapestry Workshop, Jackie and her family became close friends with Yael and Jean-Pierre. They traveled together, and Jackie attended retreats at El Tuito, Jean-Pierre and Yael's home in Mexico. Jackie was instrumental in founding Pacific Textile Arts, which hosted a retrospective of her weavings in 2022, and that we can thank for our gathering today.
The following text is in Spanish. It's very short, don't worry. It's by a wonderful writer from Uruguay, Eduardo Galeano. It touches upon the relationship between weaving, writing, and identity. It says, quien escribe, teje. Texto viene del latín textum, que significa tejido. Con hilos de palabras vamos diciendo, con hilos de tiempo vamos viviendo. Los textos son como nosotros, tejidos que andan. Well, here is what I just said. Who writes, weaves, the Latin word, and so far. Pardon?
Writes, weaves, the Latin root of text is textum, meaning weaving. With threads of words we go on telling. With threads of time we go on living. Texts are like us, weaving.
By the way, this was given to a friend of ours who is very close to Eduardo Galeano. He passed away a few years ago. And his wife, his widow, now and then sends little notes that she finds things that he wrote but were never published. So this has never been published. I look for similar sources because he wrote a lot about weaving. So following this, which touch upon identity, home is for most people the place of their birth. When you make your home in another country, home has no borders. It is the family you form, the friends you made, the land you learn to love, the people that inspires you. Jackie's generosity, welcoming nature, unflinching support and friendship meant and still means a lot to us. Her interest and appreciation of cultural expressions, especially textiles, but also music, literature, culinary traditions, is endearing. In the home we have built, Yael and me, in this our adopted country, many bricks, colorful, joyful ones, are coming from Jackie's, gifts from her heart. Oops, you jump, you jump, you jump, you jump, you jump. Okay, there we are. Several years ago, during a talk, I kiddingly suggested that this is how once, sometime in the past, we arrived to California from Mexico. The three of us, Yadin, Yael, and me. It is not totally true, of course, but it's very much the picture of how one feels when arriving to a new culture with a new language, and lenguaje, and geography. The things we used to count on are not longer of any service. The horses, so to speak, have to be left behind. I bring this up because it is here at the crossroads of the ways we knew and the new ones we were about to learn that we first met Jackie. Let me explain. During our early experiences in the US, we came to the realization that in general, we encountered two types of citizens, the ones we click in with and the ones we didn't. Generally speaking, the friendly, welcoming people of the first group have been living abroad some period of their lives. They were interested and appreciative of other cultures. They knew of confusion, awkward silences, of humor lost in translation. A trivial example, for example, that comes to mind. How do you say couch potato in Spanish? Or how do you say in English moco de pavo? Moco de pavo is piece of cake, but if you translate, is Turkish snot. So you have to deal with those little details. By the time we met Jackie, we have already been in California for several years. We have met other beautiful, remarkable people. But with Jackie first, and then with Skip, we knew one of the longest, most rewarding friendships. Because of Jackie's welcoming openness, curiosity, we were inspired to undertake together very special journeys. In addition to being a solid traveler companion, Jackie is a perfect spokesperson, the best ambassador in any circumstances. This is around 1999, high in the Patagonian Andes. After a long day driving on dirt roads from Chile over the mountains to Argentina, we arrived to this isolated indigenous village. It was like if we have landed from another planet. 2 cars and 12 gringos on one end, the villagers on the other. Then Jackie spotted this small dog. It must have been a bilingual one because right away they were celebrating each other. And before we knew it, the ice melted. A few years later, we were visiting the Chateau de la Vigne in the vicinity of Aubusson. We saw these pictures yesterday. The lady on the left is Betty Hilton Nash, an old Northern California neighbors of yours. And she has a little letter that sent a little message to you.
And I'm going to read it.
Oh my goodness.
Travels with Jackie. Sorry I couldn't be there in person for your fete, but wanted to send my sincerest wishes for a grand time. What I remember most about Jackie besides the amazing leg of lamb dinners, are our travels together. I can't begin to count the number of times we went to the Bay Area for tapestry gatherings, workshops, or shows. We made it to Convergence in Cincinnati, where we had an ATA workshop, and ran into those spinning wheel makers from North Carolina who shared some peach moonshine with us. We slept well that night. Our journeys finally took us to France on an amazing tapestry tour that Jean-Pierre and Yael led. I remember signing up for the trip at their studio in Berkeley, not having any idea how I would pay for it, but you said it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and indeed it was. May you have many more tapestry adventures in your life. Trevor and I send our love to you and our other friends gathered to celebrate you and your devotion to tapestry. Fondly, Betty.
So we were at the Chateau de la Vigne, which the owner over there is Monsieur de la Tour, right? A descendant of the original landlords. He's demonstrating, as you see, with much flair, why spiral cases are built clockwise. It has to do with defending from the enemy, he says. One man could handle an army, you see, and then he is like defending his chateau. Well, when I was looking at this picture, I realized he didn't add that probably, you know, it has to do with the person guarding the chateau was a right-handed, and the enemy were coming one by one. Because otherwise, it would have been a total disaster. That was impressive. So we were going up here to the chateau tower, one by one. When Monsieur de la Tour explained, giving himself certain airs, that the famed Greenwich Meridian, you know, the Greenwich Meridian, also known as the Prime Meridian, passed exactly at the center of the tower. After he added a couple of trivial observations, Skip, with his calm, professorial way, gave us a brilliant lecture, a real one, on the theme. That impressed Monsieur de la Tour. He will never forget our visit, Jackie, insisting over the years that he expected us back. He wanted to know more about the Meridian and for more discussions and celebrations. So here there are the two of them in the grounds of the chateau, I guess, walking the Meridian line. Then there are all those wonderful meetings in El Tuito you have heard about, and I will insist on bringing too many other pictures, but they happened during 11 consecutive years. Usually, we were weaving and working with Yael as things were going on. As you can see here, we are cutting off a piece that we just completed. Generally speaking, we didn't need the low warp loom during the periods of workshop, but sometimes happens that the piece wasn't finished, so we did continuous working. You remember that? In that one, sin maíz no hay país. We saw this, I think Sally was showing them yesterday. Without corn, there is no country. We didn't come up with this idea. This was the theme.
It goes behind it.
Oh,
They know.
I saw that was the border police. There is no nothing that we have invented here. That was the theme. Every year, Mexico has one, I think it's the largest book gathering in Latin America in the Spanish language. It happens in Guadalajara. And that year theme was Sin Maíz No Hay País. And we went there with Jair wondering, what are we going to weave this year with all these wonderful friends who are coming? And Jair said, well, here we go. Sin Maíz No Hay País. So that was the theme. And we didn't get rid of that theme for years. We kept making corns. I'm still making them.
First letters I think I had ever done.
And one of the most beautiful, renditions of corn there, Jackie. We never told Jackie, but for most of our projects, we would first want to hear what her opinion was. Only then, once we got the approval of her participation, we would extend it to others. I don't remember Jackie ever turning down one of these sometimes far-fetched projects. They took us, as you see, to Mexico several times, not just to El Tuito. We went down to Oaxaca, to Mexico City. We were exhibiting in Mexico City together too. And the ones you saw before to Europe. All those happened because I have the idea like this campfire, which are crazy ideas. How will you take people to, murderers, Mexico, where criminals are roaming the streets and chase you, So you have to trust the people you're inviting, and you have to trust the country you live in. I trust Mexico and I trust California, and I mistrust a lot of things about them. But as long as you are safe among the people you love and you do it in the right hours, there is no problem. At that time, we opened a collective gallery. At that time, in the first years, we got together with Jackie and friends down there. With the idea of featuring local craft people. In reality, there were not that many, just a couple of ceramists. There were, however, a few local interested in weaving, with a loom donated by PTA Arts and the instruction of Jackie and other retreat participants familiar with floor loom weaving. We started teaching. Until that time, in El Tuito, there was no gallery, of course, and of course, no weavers or textile interested people. There is not an indigenous culture to El Tuito. 20 years later, this is the El Tuito church here. Some ladies got together, including some of our old students, Jackie, Chayo, and, Conchita and friends, got together to decorate the church, you see, with those panels. And 20 years later, right next door to that little gallery we had, another one opened. This one, very successful, with a lot of exhibiting ceramists, not a single of them Mexican. They are all expatriates. Well, that is progress. Jackie asked me many times, can you repeat, please, that cover and bird thread concept? Are we talking viewing it from the back or the front? Can you diagram the proportional step for weaving a circle?
He gives the best circle instructions of anybody I know.
Well, it came out after you asking probably for 10 consecutive years, because as you know about things that you learn from childhood, you don't know how to explain them. You didn't learn them by your mom telling you do this, do you just copy what they are doing and then you do it. So that is the way I learned to weave, and people like Jackie with her bright mind and in constant curiosity help you to clarify those concepts. You know, why are you using your thumb, or what? I know what I'm using my thumb. So it make me so self-conscious about it that I stop using my thumb. Yeah, I'm using all the fingers in my hand because I say if I abuse my poor little thumb, by then what I'm going to use when we get like now, right? So that interest, Jackie, also came to be the seed for the book, The Anatomy of a Tapestry. Because I learned to appreciate what I always thought that was ridiculous. How can you talk about weaving? There is not a single book in French that tell you how to do floor loom. Floor loom weaving, Aubusson style weaving. There is not a book. The poor guy who wrote a book about high warp got out, retired because it's not something they like to see. It has to be passed on. That is the secret, So I always thought that way too, And why would I write to something that will be sacrilegious to do? Until I realized it's not sacrilegious. What is going to be sacrilegious is if we lose this knowledge, which is happening around the world. Aubusson right now is down to 3 workshops operating, 3 workshops. So, and they are using the book. The school at the museum is using a workshop. So there were times during these last 30 years when workshops assignments took Yael and me to almost deserted places with just 2 or 3 brave souls ready for a weekend of tapestry labyrinth. Then, to our surprise and joy, Jackie will appear, arriving just in time, which is when you are at your best, writing that newsletter the last day, before, or the catalogs you put together. All those things happen in the very last minute, but they are beautiful. So in Jackie's point of view, the world has no borders. It's something I learned discussing this with you and seeing the way you act when we've been traveling together. There are no borders. You see humanity as a just single sisterhood. It's all inclusive. This view seems to be based as much on the materiality of things as on their spiritual value. It's a totally egalitarian perspective without isms, non-judgmental. So allow me to do this in bilingual form. What I think about Jackie's motto in life. Down with borders. Abajo las fronteras. Ours, theirs, equals we. All inclusive, without prejudices. Is the value of me. In Spanish, nosotras. Nos, otras. It just includes us all.
I love it.
Well, well. And so, well, Jackie, now, just hold your breath, just for a second. Yes, thank you, Jackie Wollenberg. Here is where the journey starts. I'm trying to show them in chronological order, but it's just guessing work. You will guide us, Jackie. nobody's going to argue with you anyway. But before we do that, there is a message from your friend Janet Moore.
Dear Jackie and friends, in 1998, I became homeless for about 8 months. During that time, several friends were extraordinarily kind to me, offering their extra space to help me feel safe during that bleak period in my life. Giselle Shepetin, my employer at the time, provided a room for 2 months, as did Constance and Gary Hunt, and I will never forget their kindness during that time. In addition, Jackie and Skip Wollenberg generously and with trust in me gave me the keys to their Richmond Marina condo and let me stay without charge for 3 months. While I was there, Jackie and Skip would visit from time to time and give me encouragement and advice on home ownership. We shared thoughts about art and tapestry, and I shared bags of yarn from my studio in thanks. They let me plant flowers in the yard of their condo, and that helped me to feel at home and capable of making my own new home. When I had the good fortune to finally find my new home, they cheered me on and didn't question my worthiness. Jackie, your kindness meant so much to me and helped me get through a rough patch in safety and come out on the other side, ready to begin life as a new homeowner. I will always be grateful and fondly remember your kindness. I recall the good times with TWW when we had meetings at your home in Fort Bragg. Your studio was always full of interesting things to see and the projects you were exploring. Thank you again and again for your generosity. Janet Moore.
Janet lives in St. Louis, Missouri. This summer, she received a grant from the Regional Arts Commission of St. Louis in support of her project, A Year in Tapestry. Currently, she's also exhibiting in a St. Louis art gallery and in a museum in Scotland, a part of the Nearly Wild Weaving Group. That sounds like interesting weaving group. She sends her regards to everyone. Well, now back to the story, Jackie.
That's Santa Roy, you know, the stool that I sit on in my kitchen, the rolls under my kitchen table. That is Nana Roy's stool. She's on the far right. She's a what a face. Formidable person.
Jackie, is a picture in the left where you look so excited something that you have done already or about to do?
It must be my wedding day because that was my wedding dress. You can see that's the same dress I have on there.
Right. This was
we were married. And on the steps on Durantes Avenue in San Francisco.
Who's that tall guy?
That's the one guy.
Yeah.
Here we go.
We look young.
Yes, yes.
You were young. We were married.
shipping. Oh,
Oh my goodness. That is that in our cabin? Mike?
That's the hotel, Johnson Hotel cabin.
Yeah. Went over there for dinner one night.
In our cabin in the Sierras.
Is that baby Kathy?
That's baby Kathy. And my Steve over on the far right and Mike on the left.
Back in
That's the spinning wheel.
did you start spinning before weaving?
I started spinning primarily after Skip was invited to do some work for the Danish government. And we moved to Roskilde in Denmark. We lived there and I studied in an archaeological research center Textile Archaeological Research Center called Lyra. And I learned to spin really from the people there. It was lovely. And that's a Norwegian wheel that I bought.
And that's how I met Jackie, was over that wheel.
Later
There in Berkeley.
in Berkeley, right? At a fair.
I remember when
She said to me, "Are they in North Spinnable?"
yeah,
And I answered her in Danish, and that's when we became friends.
we were looking at the spinning wheel, it was in Oslo. And we kept looking at it, and finally Dad just said, "Oh, just buy it." One of the few times he.
Yeah. I recently sold it to Lena Scola.
Molly, what year was that you met? 1973 or four?
I think.
74.
I think so. In my house in Berkeley.
No, it's an ADL.
Yeah, it's an ADL.
Was it?
The only one I have left is
the
the plate number now, but
Since we see you here sitting by the room, I took the liberty to go through some of the pieces that they are iconic, to me, that I have seen in your house, in exhibitions. Actually, the first time I saw some of them, or one of them in particular, was in a gallery in Berkeley.
really,
Yeah, the CAC gallery or something. Some of these pictures are clear and good. Some are not so good because I took them photographing Sheila's video that I did from you.
this was in Convergence, I think in Pittsburgh. Yeah, Pittsburgh.
A long time ago.
Yeah. Small expression.
So is the famous watermelon.
Yeah.
There is a dimension, there is a dimension to this piece for me. There are those shells or conch, I don't know how they call it, that you approach to and you can hear the ocean. So in reality, when I see a watermelon, I see this inside the watermelon, because you see, you shape your piece more or less like a watermelon, right?
This was inspired by 10 days that I spent at a cousin's house in Mike Ware.
Stinson?
Yeah. Say it louder. Stinson Beach, right. And their house was just right on the edge of the beach, except that there was a mound of sand between it. I would hear it all the time, and I'd walk up and look at it. It just inspired me so much. That's where I got that. Oh, in the house where I was sitting, up on a high cupboard, there were some paper mache pieces. And one of those pieces was a watermelon. That's where I put the two together.
It's a wonderful piece.
It's a wonderful
Very,
piece. It is.
There it goes now.
It's like the piece of a lifetime.
Faded side.
Well, one of the things when we first came up, when you built your house, this beautiful house, you have a piece of art, actually, one of probably, the most notorious one, because we can all, see it and share it and live in it, is that you have so many looms, but you use very few of them. You do most of your little pieces without a loom, right? Or you wear
That piece that is in your book.
right.
shows-
And this one was also on with
it's done on one of
one of those.
I would wrap up on 8. I would use 8 to the inch paper.
Right.
Put my image on it and put that on a piece of foam for a few of them put together. Yeah, and then put pins from corner to corner all the way. And so when I would go like that, that would give me 16 to the inch. That's what that is.
60. And this one probably too.
Yeah. That was inspired by a wonderful Doberman dog that I had. You might see the Doberman in there somewhere.
Yeah, this is
Yeah, he's in my hallway or in the TV room. On your way to the bathroom. Oh, yes, I just fell in love with that raw linen. Very, very basic stuff, and I used that for a lot of pieces after that as backgrounds or something, and then kind of the piece that's in the dining room is similar to that.
or this one, which we saw the cutting off here for Bragg. Remember, you wore this. I think was after the Iraq war or during.
Yes. Never was terribly happy with that design, but the feeling behind it was very strong. So be it. You don't win it every time.
You got real close to winning it on that. I wouldn't judge it too harshly.
This.
A walk along the
some of
river.
my feelings about
Yeah,
in Rita. Oh, Yalapa. Right. It was inspired in Yalapa. Yes, the El Torito River runs down through and empties out on the shoreline in Yalapa.
That's right.
South of it.
Then the two corn pieces.
One day at the retreats that we had, Pierre and Yaya said, we're going to study corn. And we all went outside and we photographed corn in all sorts of different ways. And these were two, and then we wove pieces inspired by those. And those are two that I did.
You know, I'm still weaving corns. Actually, I have what I have in the loom now is another corn piece. One that I sent to show this HGA, you know, annual miniature show. I wanted to test the ground for tapestry. I wanted to know because it was juried by a professor somewhere back east. I say, what happens if one enters a tapestry? Are they going to pay any attention? You know? So anyway, it is one of those corn pieces. And I got a title for it, 197 days. So what they mean is, it takes about, this for native corn in Oaxaca, and comes out of Jacobo's farm. It takes about 150 days for corn to grow. It takes about 30 days to dry. And then it took me about 70 days to weave. 100. So I figure I'm in the business like corn, you know, of producing little things.
I think it took me that long to do the sin maíz, so I país.
Right.
Oh, Sasha. This is Sasha, many of you have met, and she is right here with us. You don't remember the dress? I saw her when I in her earlier days.
In Berkeley, probably this is in Berkeley. Well, this is obviously here.
Visit from Lolly. This is on Mariposa Street in Berkeley. Because we lived on a walkway, you had to walk about a half a block to get to my house, walk down the hill. So this was on Mariposa Street where you would park your car and carry your groceries from.
That was when we were coming down to take that workshop with Jim Aaron at Pacific Basin.
So that's Lolly on the left.
Wayne Lackey in the middle.
What happened?
Just wait.
Oh.
Oh my goodness. My goodness. That is Larkin. Isn't it?
Yeah, your birthday, buddy.
Who's that?
It's my son and he was born on her birthday.
Mike? Is that Larkin?
What?
Is that Larkin?
Yeah, it's large.
Yeah.
Yeah,
My grandson. That's Skip Florida.
that's, yeah.
And that's Papa. Nana Roy's son. He's a good one. Gonna bring my tears to my eyes.
Me too.
Well,
Very supportive of all the crazy things I did.
like that one, Jackie.
Oh my,
Well,
that is Santiago.
this is in Santiago, right? Well, this is the last picture today. This photo, yeah, was taken in Santiago at the same restaurant where inspiration came to Jerry for that fabulous poem of his. I don't know if people who are not familiar with Chile, you must be at least familiar with Chilean wine. So imagine being there at the center of all those, wonderful. And the place, it was called La Divina Comida, which is coming from the play word La Divina Comedia, right? It's Dante's word, La Divina Comida. And we were always, really extending our dinners in these fantastic conversations. And that was lunchtime? Okay, so you see, it started at lunchtime.
Just down the street from us was a shop where a man was building furniture.
Correct.
With one little footstool. And I had no way to carry it home, so I carried it on my lap on the airplane. And it now sits underneath the wicker chair that is next to my bed. And it is how I managed to put my shoes under it and then be able to pull them back on it. It's a key part of my life. That stool that I bought down the street from there.
Well, and the fellow on the left, which is not a stool, but still, in my life, a fundamental part of my understanding of indigenous symbolism, because that is what he has done all his life. Pedro Mejes, he wrote several books about it, really enlightens the whole process of native thinking and abstraction. So in my mind, this image encapsulates the heart of our friendship, Jackie. Other than the pleasure of traveling and adventure, other than the joy of good meals, other than our shared passion for tapestry, it is the fascination we share with the cultural expressions of this incredibly beautiful world. So the dialogue goes on, and we are done.
I don't know where you got this crazy idea